Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
I know you don't have another appointment. You had nowhere to be but here with us on Sports Daily. Welcome in, everybody, to a Friday. Always jam-packed on a Friday here. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, Jad Chambers producing for us. Glad to be here with you. Thanks for tuning in here on KFH. Thanks for tuning in on our video streams, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. You can find those. You can also get in touch with us on social media, Twitter, X. We're easy to find on there. We can get to comments there. However you want to interact with the show, of course, our favorite way is right on that IHOP hotline, which is brought to you by IHOP. Try the new slow braised beef pot roast or a savory country fried steak and give it a call, 869-1240. We'll have some giveaways coming up. We've got some picks to make. We'll get you caught up on where we stand in our picked sure to fail this year so far. Again, we take the most difficult games we can find to pick, not the ones we're necessarily betting, so that adds to the challenge of it. We'll have Paul Savage in the second hour to make those picks with us. We have Matt Henderson coming up the second hour to talk a little high school football as well. Get you ready for a busy night tonight, quite frankly, with K-State, and a busy weekend with KU and the Chiefs. Tommy, how are you?
I'm good this morning. So if you're watching the video stream, I was just handed so have you ever heard of Manscaped before? So I'm not doing a plug here. This is just, it's a company.
No, I mean, I know what Manscaping is.
So it's a company called Manscaped, and they're a sponsor of the Wichita Thunder, and they sent us a bunch of these grooming kits. And so I was just handed one, and makes me think that maybe they're trying to tell me something that I could use it for whatever reason.
Well,
I need it.
Now, Manscaping gets into an area that, would make some listeners blush here if I understand Manscaping correctly.
Probably not suitable for air to talk about exactly what that means, but literally seconds ago, I was just handed this essential. It's a 4-piece essential grooming kit, and it makes me think they're trying to tell me that I could probably use it.
Boy, I'm having a really hard time right now containing myself furthering this conversation. Because it's a Friday and nobody needs an angry phone call here on a Friday. So we'll
move on from that. It literally just happened seconds ago. That's why I brought it up. But yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday. Look, we had Thursday Night Football that I told you would be entertaining. I thought that was I didn't catch until probably halfway through the third quarter. We had a third grade music concert going last night. We went for some ice cream afterward. We, all kinds of good stuff. And then we got the game turned on. But my dumb head traded DJ Moore in one of my fantasy football leagues last week. We'll regret that. I'm certain of it. But look, they bucked the trend. It looked to me like, I told you my favorite thing about it was the over, that hit, because I lose bets all the time, but this one felt really good because I thought and have thought for about certainly last week, the Bears offense seems to be finding form. And it's not like we haven't seen this before. This is what happened with them last year, right? It took a few games. They put Justin Fields in a position where he was not comfortable. And then after a few embarrassing weeks, they turned him loose a little bit, and he looks like a totally different player. And, oh, by the way, he has one of the more talented receivers in football. DJ Moore's never had a great quarterback to play with, but that dude's a baller. Love DJ Moore, always have. And just remember back to the trade that they made. And it makes me wonder, Tommy, immediately, right? Okay, so the Bears get all of these assets in trading away basically the ability to draft Bryce Young. Now, they could have taken one of the other quarterbacks, right? But they got the 9th overall pick, a second-round pick last year, a first-round pick this coming year, a second-round pick next year, and DJ Moore. Okay, That's a big haul, especially when we see Bryce Young struggling. I mean, right now, Tommy, and this is a really difficult question, but we'll ask it just for the sake of this. Would you rather have Justin Fields or Bryce Young? I mean, I don't think that's a slam dunk to Bryce Young at all.
I don't think it is either. And that makes it difficult. I mean, I think why you can't answer that right now is because the jury is still out on Bryce Young. I mean,
Absolutely.
It's such a small sample size, and he's been injured and all of that, So I'm not sure that would be a fair comparison to make at this point.
It's not.
The one thing I want to point out, though, and look, I don't want to take anything away from the Bears. It's been a long time since they've won a game. Good for them. They looked incredible. But can we pump the brakes a little bit here? Like, they played a terrible Broncos defense a week ago and put up points, but lost the game. And they played a terrible Washington defense last night. So they played really, really poor defenses the last 2 weeks. Of course, Justin Fields is going to look amazing, but go back before they played the Broncos and before they played the Commanders and look at the stats that Justin Fields had.
In fairness to your argument, because I agree, those first 3 weeks, they played 3 good to really good defenses, right? And so what we're seeing to me is Justin Fields is a quarterback that has struggled against good defenses and eats up bad defenses. Okay. I mean, that's not uncommon for a young player. So what's interesting is, I don't know that they made they got a lot in this trade, and DJ Moore is an absolute stud. So I think we're going to look at this and say, yeah, the Bears won that trade. If you think about it as Bryce Young, I don't know if we'll think that when you see how well CJ Stroud's played, especially, and, to some degree, Anthony Richardson. So it's a little bit hard because they could have had, remember, they were the 1 pick, so they could have had any of those guys. And we're not saying they may not have wanted Bryce Young, but they decided to stick with Fields. So now they're going to have a decision potentially again, like if they maintain. Now, they won last night, and I don't know if they're going to end up being the worst team in football, by the way. But, let's say they had the worst record and Justin Fields continues to show flashes like this. If you got that much last year, imagine how much you could get for that first pick when it's Caleb Williams. Now, that all comes down to the question of, do you or I guess the other side of it too is you could also trade Justin Fields.
Right. And then draft Caleb Williams yourself.
Yeah. So they could potentially be in a really good situation. Again, I don't know if I think they're going to be, by the end of it, the worst team in football. I think we don't know who that's going to be yet.
Well, but remember, they have both the first and the second pick, right? Coming up this year. Isn't that the case? I mean, I think they have both number 1 and number 2 in that trade with the Panthers.
They got a first this year, so they'd have the Panthers and theirs. Yeah. So if the Panthers are really bad, let's say the Panthers are that team, sure. And so they're in a pretty good position. And so you have to ask yourself, is Justin Fields the future? I don't know the answer to that. He has not looked good as a traditional pocket passer, right? And even last night, Tommy only had 15 completions, right? And he was at about 50%, which is not good at all. But he's got some playmakers now, and he ran for 57 more yards, and they have a pretty good running game. Khalil Herbert looked good now for a second straight week, and I know that Roschon Johnson got hurt, but I think Roschon Johnson's going to be pretty good. The Bears are really interesting, and this is why I was interested in this game last night. And the other part of it is Sam Howell, who is under fire, who I did think looked pretty good. I kind of like Sam Howell. He looks like he's got some staying power. That game script got away from them. Washington doesn't want to play games that way. Like, they want to be able to run the ball and do that, but they got behind too far early. So I liked the game last night because we got 2 young quarterbacks to watch. And, I don't think people were ready to put dirt on Justin Fields' career. I think that was crazy. I don't think he looks like a great passer either, by the way. Like, don't get me wrong, but he has something, right? Like, can he get just a little bit better as a passer to utilize all these other skills? Josh Allen, for instance, became a better passer in the NFL over time, right? And that doesn't happen very often, but it happened for him. So, like, why not, if you're the Bears? Like, I guess it's just not as doom and gloom as people think. They're in a pretty good situation, Tommy, no matter what happens. If Fields plays well and continues to, they've got 2 high draft picks to continue to motivate and they can trade one of those and get even more assets. Like, they're in a good position to build up. The question becomes, of course, is he the long-term quarterback? But I don't think through 4 weeks we know the answer to that. I don't think through now 2 seasons in 4 weeks we know the answer to that question.
I don't think we do either. And I don't think that you can take what happened last night and the week before and combine them and make that your total final assessment of Justin Fields.
Sure you can.
In the
But
same
just
way
like
that
you can't take the first 3.
The first 3 weeks, you can't do that either. So again, I think the jury is still out. And knowing that, and because of that, today, as I sit here after the game last night, I don't, in my mind, I'm not even really thinking about the Bears and what's happening with them moving forward, because I think the jury is still out, and I don't think that we can make that decision right now and make that assessment. I think it's more about the Commanders and more about how bad they looked last night and how I'm not sure that Ron Rivera is the right choice long-term for this franchise. I don't know. I mean,
Well,
it was not good last night. And you know what, honestly, like, I thought coming into this season and really even through the first couple of weeks, I thought, okay, like, they're definitely not as good as the Eagles. They're probably not as good as the Cowboys in that division.
Right?
I just kind of thought, you know what, like, they might be a step behind, but they're growing. They're getting there with Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator. That's going to help. Sam Howell, I think, if given the right tools, can develop and be a fine quarterback. Like, I thought all those things. And I'm not saying that all that's gone and out the window today after last night, but it certainly wasn't a good look at home for them. I mean, it was 27-3 at halftime. And, they mounted a little bit of a comeback.
Yeah.
But man, that's just not, it's not a good way, obviously, to play in front of your home fans that way. But this is they played a Bears team that hadn't won in almost a year. It had been such a long time. And then they just go in and get smacked in the mouth by the Bears.
Yeah, they just took Philly to overtime too, by the way, in Philadelphia. So they're very Jekyll and Hyde too. I do like Ron Rivera. They've never had a good quarterback since he's been there. And, they've had good teams despite it. So I think the defense is clearly taking a step back for them, but they've got, decent weapons for Sam Howell to work with. They're going to be a confusing team all year.
Do you think that's fair that after the game last night, like, it's less about the Bears and what they're going to do moving forward at quarterback and more about just the collapse of the Commanders? Because that's my take on it.
It may be. Again, like, Ron Rivera right now in Washington has been 24-30-1. I mean, he doesn't have a winning season there. So this could 4 years and you don't get a winning season in the NFL. I mean, he's got a track record, so he gets a little more leash from his time in Carolina. But yeah, I mean, I suppose I could see it, but he's also never had a quarterback. And in this league, you kind of have to have one. And so we'll see. I don't know what to think of them. Their defense isn't as good as it needs to be. But, they're going to be Jekyll and Hyde. They're going to beat some people, and they're going to make bettors probably really frustrated, just like they did last night. Because I think that you could get a good version of them or a bad version of them any week. But let's talk about them for a second here. And this is where we bring things back to, like, the interest of fans around here. Who's doing a better job as an offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy or Matt Nagy?
Well, I think before last night, I might have said Eric Bieniemy. I'm not sure that that's,
really.
I think it's narrowed a little bit.
Washington's offense has been good. They've been really good.
I know, but they
look at the development of the young quarterback.
They weren't great last night. That's why I'm saying before last night, I would have easily said Eric Bieniemy. It didn't look great.
Other than the play of their offensive line, that performance by Sam Howell was pretty good to me. They couldn't. You got to remember too, like, they immediately became a one-dimensional offense last night. That's not Eric Bieniemy's fault. Like, what's he supposed to do? Like, when you get down 27-0, just like that, you got to just throw the ball around, and that allows what we saw happen to happen. Your quarterback gets sacked. What was it, like 9 times or whatever? Like, but as far as, like, I just think he's done a really good job there. I think we need to begin to question Matt Nagy the same way we would have Eric Bieniemy. I mean, the Chiefs' offense has struggled to its own standard. There's no question about it. I mean, is that a Matt Nagy
problem? Is that a Matt Nagy problem, or is that the talent on the field problem?
Look, let me ask you this way. If Eric Bieniemy was the offensive coordinator, do you think he'd be taking a little blame right now? There's no question he would.
With the wide receivers they have, I'm not sure that he would at the level that he's had in the past.
We spent 4 years wondering if it was Eric Bieniemy's problem or Andy Reid's problem, and how much does he? And we've got the infighting and all these things.
But they had guys like Tyreek Hill on the roster when that was going on with Eric Bieniemy also. Like, I'm not sure
those offenses were scoring 30 points a game too. I just remember last year when we had a bunch of questions at wide receiver, and think about this year, and the group this year is more talented than the group last year was. I think we could all relatively agree on, but it's not coming together. I'm not trying to say that, everything is Matt Nagy's fault. I'm not saying that's not where I intended to go with this. But as much as Eric Bieniemy has dealt with all of this, not getting hired, all of this, he's in Washington, and he's got a young quarterback playing pretty dang good. And he's got an offense there humming pretty well, too. And the Chiefs, I think we can absolutely all agree on, have underachieved this year offensively. Who's to blame for that? I don't know. But I do know that Eric Bieniemy's not there anymore. They're struggling offensively. Eric Bieniemy goes to an offense that we all thought would be terrible, and it's not terrible, with a young quarterback we knew nothing about. This is a conversation that's intended to, way to go, Eric Bieniemy. What did we say? If he was able to go to Washington and do this, we said he'd get hired immediately. Hire that man. He's going to get a job for sure, Tommy. He's done a great job with Sam Howell. A great job. Look at Washington's offense now with the same skill players that they had a year ago, right? And really for the last 2 or 3 years, they've had some consistency, and they're better. And Sam Howell's got a lot to do with that, but here's the coach putting a young quarterback in a position to succeed. Let's say the Bears make a change at coach. Why wouldn't you go hire Eric Bieniemy after what you're seeing again now in the second place?
Yeah. I don't have an issue with Eric Bieniemy, and I'm happy for him. I'm happy that, he was able to get another opportunity to prove himself in Washington. I don't think he needed to. I think we've talked about that at length, but it was a fresh start for him, and a new look, a new change of scenery, all of that. And I'm totally on board with that. I think that with the criticisms that he received when he was in Kansas City, I think that had less to do with him and more about the players on the field, and kind of the same way with Matt Nagy right now. I was never willing to pin it on Eric Bieniemy in the same way that I'm not willing to pin it on Matt Nagy either so far. I'm
not trying to pin it on Matt Nagy. That wasn't the point of this. Although I do think we need to start having some conversations about that. Not, it just needs to be sort of brought up a little bit. I mean, he took over the offense, and it has struggled.
Sure. It has struggled for sure. And I think that, you can look back on the way that the team has been built offensively, the way that the players that they have, the way that, Brett Veach has gone about building this offensive roster. There are a lot of different factors that play into that. But when it comes to Eric Bieniemy, yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think anybody thought that Sam Howell was going to be, a viable quarterback in the NFL. And Eric Bieniemy is working on developing him into that. And I think he's looked fine, so far to start the season. Now, that being said, they, and you mentioned the offensive line. The Commanders did not have a great offensive output last night. That's not the story. The story is the defense, and just how bad the defense was for Washington last night. But good for Eric Bieniemy. I mean, they did mount a little bit of a comeback. Had it not been for that missed field goal, I mean, that kind of ended the game at that point. But, had it not been for that, I mean, I think there's a scenario where the Commanders do come back and make it a game, and all of a sudden it's like deja vu for the Bears after what they went through against Denver a week ago. So credit to Eric Bieniemy for all of that. I do think that, and we talked about this before the season, if he can come into Washington and if he can turn that offense into something, I would say even, slightly above average, I mean, that's a win for Bieniemy. And I think that there are other teams, like you mentioned, the Bears, other teams like that should take note of that if and when they do have head coaching vacancies.
It will be, yeah. Look, it's a fascinating. I think the Bears are fascinating, but I think that the Commanders are becoming that way, and it's really just because of their quarterbacks. That's why That's why that game's fun. I don't know what will happen with Bieniemy. I think he has done a really good job. Really good job. And it made me think last night as I'm watching it, man, the Chiefs have struggled and he's there having success. And for all the grief and everything he's taken over the years, for whatever reason, not from Chiefs people. I don't think Chiefs people did anything other than that one little, weird incident there at the end of that year. But look, he's doing a good job. And I think the Chiefs miss him. I really do. Whether everything's Nagy's fault or not, I'm not trying to say that. But I think they miss Eric Bieniemy for sure. I mean, I don't think there's any question about that. And it'll be I think we all think the Chiefs offense is going to be just fine over time, but we're 4 games in and they have not been as good as we thought they would. They're running the ball. They look a little bit different. Maybe that's what they do. And that's fine too. We'll get to the Chiefs next against the Vikings because it is a big spot for their offense. This is a game where their offense has to look good. We'll talk about that next. 869-1240 is the number to call. Let's do a giveaway. Tommy, Wichita Thunder home opener. It is coming quick.
Yeah, 2 weeks from today, October 20th, in Trust Bank Arena, the Thunder take on the Kansas City Mavericks. We're looking forward to it. Hockey back in Wichita in just a couple of weeks, and we've got a pair of tickets to the home opener for you right now.
2 weeks from today, 2 tickets to that opener. To our first caller on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Jad will get us a winner. We'll come back with more Sports Daily right after this. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Jeff chiming in, third grade concert. He takes a shot at Justin Bieber there. Is Justin Bieber even still making music? Doesn't he have I think he's got like a voice problem.
I have no idea.
Jokes appreciated there, Jeff. Saying, more importantly, that Bieniemy needed to leave Kansas City to better his chances at a head coaching job. Yeah, I mean, certainly he did. And it brings up, the point of people wondering who really coached the offense in Kansas City. And that's my point. If that was the question, and Kansas City has taken a step back and Washington has taken a clear step forward, doesn't that mean that Bieniemy is answering that biggest question, which I also agree has been what has kept him from becoming a head coach? I think he's answering it resoundingly.
I think he is too, to an extent. I mean, I think that you're probably a little bit further along on that than I am, because, I mean, let's face it, it's not like he has turned the Commanders into this juggernaut. They're not a juggernaut offensively. They're better. They're clearly better than what they were before, and that's great. And I'm not suggesting that it was his responsibility or duty to turn them into a juggernaut. I mean, you have to look at the personnel that they have. They don't have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. They have Sam Howell. So the ceiling is going to be a little bit lower. I mean, you would think, and that's pretty, I think, obvious with the way that Commanders offense, needs to operate. But they've got talent. They've got Terry McLaurin. They've got Jahan Dotson. Brian Robinson is a good running back. So they've got some weapons there offensively. And sure, he's made them better. You say resoundingly, I don't know if I would quite go that far, but he certainly has made them better than what they were, because they were pretty bad before.
All right, so I'm looking. Last year, Washington scored just over 18 points a game last season. And this year, they are, give me 2 seconds. All right, so they've scored 109 points over, how many games have they played? Five now, yeah. They're 4 points a game higher this year than they were last year with a basically a rookie quarterback, essentially. I think that's way better. I think it's way better. And, it's not like they're playing cupcakes here, the Washington this year. I mean, they're not. They've played good teams. Outside of the Bears last night, right? They played the Eagles. The Cardinals have been respectable for sure. They did get a game against the Broncos, and they didn't do much against the Bills. So, they've had a test of everything, and they're scoring about 4 points a game more right now with essentially a rookie quarterback. I'd say that's been it's hard to imagine a better start for the offense, right? Like, they've done a really good job there this year offensively.
I'm looking at stats on NFL.com right now. They're ranked. I mean, they're 12th in the NFL as far as scoring is concerned, scoring touchdowns. Now, keep in mind they played one more game than everybody else has because they played last night. So that's going to probably, it'll definitely change once we get through the games this weekend. But, still being somewhere around the middle of the road offensively for Washington, because, keep in mind, like you just mentioned, where they were a year ago to now. That's why I'm saying, like, he hasn't turned them into a juggernaut, but that's not his job. Like, that's not his expectation, right. I don't think. I'm not saying that's not his job, but I don't think anybody had those expectations with him coming in, that he was going to take them from down at the bottom to all of a sudden, this high-powered offense right away in 1 year with the personnel that they have. He's made them respectable, I think, for the most part. I'm not willing to say, like, at this point right now, that I think that they're not an offense that
No. But when we're talking just about the job Eric Bieniemy's done,
sure,
it has absolutely been successful. The Chiefs, in his absence, have not been as good. So we can look a lot of places, and it's not just like he's not the only reason here, but I think when you only in the consideration of the questions he faced and why he went to Washington in the first place, it's so far it's like advantage Bieniemy, right?
And here's what you can't do with Eric Bieniemy as far as like assessing what he did with Kansas City and now what he's doing with the Commanders. You can't give him all the blame when he was in Kansas City, but then give
Correct.
him none of the credit when he's gone. Like you can't do that. You have to, like, if you're willing to blame him for some of the offensive issues, that mean when he was in Kansas City, that means that you believe that he was integral in that offense and as far as calling the plays and planning and executing and all of that. So if you're going to give him the blame, you have to be willing to give him that. And so then when he's gone and they're struggling, then you probably need to give him some of the credit for what he did in Kansas City. You can't have it both ways.
That's right. And that's my point. Like not trying to make any definitive statements other than that. Like give him credit if you gave him grief. That's pretty much it, because he has earned that when you're using that as your benchmark. All right, so let's talk about the Chiefs, who have struggled offensively. Again, by their own standard here. Minnesota should be a get-right game for this offense. Absolutely should be a get-right game. Minnesota, I think defensively has been better against the run than the pass, certainly, which is interesting to see the way that the Chiefs have played this year. Patrick Mahomes is off to, as rocky a start as we would ever see out of Patrick Mahomes. He hasn't played well yet. And the Chiefs are 3-1. Don't ever take what we're talking about here as doomsday. It's not that at all. It's just this would be a great opportunity for this offense to take off in this game. So here we go. What do we think? Can that happen? And then if that happens and this turns into a track meet, does the defense then do some of what it's done at times this year? And I think this is a fascinating game. It's a desperate game for Minnesota, but man, this is a great test game, I think, for Kansas City. By the way, and we'll get to picks, Tommy, the line moved again toward the Vikings. It's now at 3.5 points. This game opened at 5.5 points, and we've had no significant injuries to move that line. That means big money is loving the Vikings in this game. That's pretty interesting to me.
I think that one thing that we've got
Vikings to cover, by the way.
One thing we've got to expect for this weekend's game is, and I'm already like picturing it in my mind how it's going to happen. Steve Spagnuolo is going to blitz like crazy.
Yep.
Right. Like I mean, with the fact that you've got that pass rush with Kansas City and the fact that that offensive line for Minnesota is bad and Kirk Cousins has gotten beat up basically every single game that he's played this season. I mean, I just envision just blitzes like crazy from Steve Spagnuolo's defense on Sunday. That's going to be defensively the key to victory for Kansas City. It's interesting. You mentioned that line moving, and I don't quite know what to make of that. I mean, obviously you're getting some sharp money on the Vikings at that point, but I'm not really sure the reasoning why. They haven't played these two teams haven't played each other in 4 years, I think was the last time they played. And Patrick Mahomes didn't play in that game. Matt Moore started for Kansas City in that game because Mahomes was injured. So Mahomes he's never beaten the Vikings, hasn't played them, all of that. So, I mean, I think that makes it interesting. And again, we go back to what we've discussed all week long about just the offensive weapons that the Vikings have. You've got to neutralize that. You have to minimize that as much as possible. I think the best way to do that, throw as many blitzes as possible at the Vikings offense.
We're going to talk more about that game in the second hour. Up next, we're going to preview K-State's game tonight. The voice of the Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson, joins us on Sports Daily. That's coming right after this.
Purchased by October 30th.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
Your new radio home for K-State Athletics, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. It's that time, Sports Daily, getting all the inside information on Kansas State. Let's go now to the voice of the Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson.
All right, we welcome in Wyatt Thompson as we get ready for some Friday night football, Friday Night Lights College Edition. First time the Cats have played on a Friday night this year, Wyatt. Is your clock adjusted? I know you had the week off, so maybe it wasn't adjusted anyway, but what do you think about this Friday night football?
Well, I'm excited about it. We do not do it very often. I think we have counted maybe 3 times, at least in recent memory. I remember playing in California one time on a Friday night against Stanford as an example. But yeah, I'm good. I think the team is good. They basically just, had the week off as you talked about, and they started their Monday this week was Sunday. So I think they're okay. And travel was good yesterday. They've had some meetings this morning, and we'll head over there this afternoon. And should be a very interesting football game. Looking forward to it.
Wyatt, how do we look health-wise coming off the bye week? We know about the banged-up Will Howard, and, of course, Trayshawn Ward didn't play in the last game before the bye week. How are things looking from what you can tell injury-wise coming off that bye?
I think for the most part, they're in pretty good shape. I would give you a few examples here. Christian Duffy played, as it turned out, I think 49 snaps in the game against UCF. He's good to go. As a matter of fact, probably will be the starting right tackle tonight for the first time this year. So that's a good thing. I think Will Howard's pretty close to being back to very near 100%. Trayshawn will be available tonight. Let's see, a couple of receivers, Keegan Johnson and RJ Garcia expected to go. I think RJ is probably at 100%. Keegan hopefully is pretty close. It seems that way anyway. Jake Clifton is a little bit better. So I think for the most part, the two goals going into the off week were getting some work for the young guys, and the really young guys in the program that are, either playing special teams or trying to make their way to the field offensively or defensively. And then the obvious was to get a little bit more healthy. So I think they've done that.
Wyatt, the curious case of Avery Johnson, we thought we'd see a lot of him. We haven't seen much of him outside of the opener. Now it has me wondering, are we thinking about a red shirt here again if we're the coaching staff, or is it just been the opportunity is not there? I don't know. Is there any insight to even have on how he looks to be utilized moving forward? You would think that if things go the way that they should tonight, it would be an opportunity to see some Avery Johnson. But we've thought that before in games and we didn't get it.
Well, that's a fair statement. And I do think it's an intriguing subject, isn't it? Because let's tell it like it is. He is the number 2 quarterback right now. I don't think that coaches have made that a real big secret. And you're just a play away, as the old saying, right? And yet we haven't seen much of him lately. I was a little bit surprised, if I'm being honest about it, that we didn't at least get a little bit of a look in the UCF game, especially under the circumstances in which, Will played in the game. And I think some of us thought that he might, but would be very limited. Well, he definitely played and really wasn't all that limited at 85 or 90%. So it's a real interesting scenario here, because I think I guess I'm just going to say this. I think they are wavering back and forth a little bit, right or wrong, on, whether to just let it go and play him some. I kind of get the sense, though, that maybe that's the deal. I can't guarantee that you'll see him tonight, but I don't. As far as the red shirt thing, I don't think they're thinking that way. I think it's more about opportunity. That's just my personal opinion.
Wyatt, I asked you last week about your assessment of the way that DJ Giddens ran the ball in the game before the bye week. And now, assuming that Trayshawn Ward is healthier, able to come back and play in tonight's game, how do you think Chris Kleiman and Colin Klein work him back in? I mean, knowing how successful Giddens was, does that mean that we'll see less of Trayshawn Ward moving forward, or do you think it will go back to kind of that timeshare that we saw before?
Well, I'll be honest. I think you'll see a little bit more of DJ Giddens just based on that performance. That was impressive. They leaned on him for lots of different reasons. One, Trayshawn wasn't available. Two, I think Will was somewhat limited in the run game, or at least that's what we were thinking at the time. I don't know that he was all that limited when it was all said and done. But DJ responded. And in visiting with Coach Kleiman about it this week, I don't think we're going to see the guy touch the ball 38 times tonight. And yet, if he kind of gets off the deck in a hurry and starts to do some really good things, remember now, 2 weeks ago, K-State ran for 281 yards against UCF. I'm not predicting that they will tonight, but if they kind of get it rolling and he's the big part of that, I don't know why you would necessarily change, in all due respect to Trayshawn, if that makes sense at all. I think it was a great thing that happened, because it proved to everybody, including DJ Giddens, that he's got it in him to be not only that versatile, but that tough. And that many carries is a big deal. He also had 8 catches in the game. It was extraordinary.
Well, here's an interesting take on that too. We're joined by Wyatt Thompson, voice of the Wildcats. So we get Oklahoma, TV stations reaching out. We share video and stuff for the TV work I do all the time. And they wanted, like, their sole focus. They're like, hey, do you guys have any video we could have? We assume it's mostly DJ Giddens that you'll have. And I'm thinking, so that's the way other places are thinking about K-State. What a dangerous way to think, because DJ Giddens has had, yes, this incredible game, and we're optimistic about DJ Giddens in his future. But man, if I'm Oklahoma State, and again, this isn't reflective of their coaching staff as much as it is just the perception of the Wildcats. It to me, it's like I'm worried about the fact that Will Howard and that offensive line have so much experience and have as talented a pass group as we've seen there in a long time. Yet everybody thinks this is like a DJ Giddens offense. I don't think this is a DJ Giddens offense. I think this is a Will Howard offense.
Well, that's pretty perfectly said from my perspective, because when you visit with Chris Kleiman or somebody like that, Colin Klein, name the coach, most of those guys will say to you that this is Will's team. He's the face of the program, and Coach Kleiman loves that part of it. He wants the players, to be the leaders of the pack, so to speak. Doesn't mean that they won't and don't, because they obviously do. But Will, with his experience, with his confidence, with his knowledge, he's worked, with Colin for quite some time now. I think there is just a whole lot of reason to be in that mode, if you will. With that said, again, I hate to go back to just the one game, but I think it's been more than just the one game. It was just maybe more successful against UCF. What K-State really had in that game was balance. And I think what you're saying is a very interesting subject, because I have said all along, going back to the championship game, of last year and losing Deuce and losing Malik Knowles and that, K-State's not going to replace Deuce. And they I think they missed the shot play value that he brought. That's pretty obvious. But I think this team is better offensively when everybody is involved. And by that, I mean Ben Sinnott and Phillip Brooks and Keegan Johnson and Jaden Jackson, those 2 running backs, Will Howard, Garrett Oakley. That's a lot of guys, and I think that's a good thing.
Wyatt, what are you looking at when it comes to Oklahoma State tonight? It's been rough for them this season, getting blown out by South Alabama. They lose on the road to Iowa State. Just seems like a lot of drama with their quarterback play and all of that. And, I don't know exactly what the status of Mike Gundy is and kind of where his head's at this season, but it's not been good for the Cowboys. What are you seeing?
Well, I want to go back to last season to try to answer that, first of all, because for them, that was one of their poorest seasons in a while, because the truth is they've been to 17 straight bowls. They're very much one of the most winning programs in this league, dating back to 2010, 2011, somewhere in there. The numbers will bear that out. But in addition to having the year where they struggled a little bit, although still played in a bowl game, then what happens is they had multiple guys go into the portal and leave the program. 3 guys from the defense that were terrific players, including Trace Ford, who went from Oklahoma State to Oklahoma. Those things are a little bit rare, or at least used to be. So I think there were questions going into the year, is the point. And then on top of that, you get into this year and losing Spencer Sanders, for the first 3 games, they played all 3 quarterbacks in all 3 games. That is also a little bit different. So I think it's taken them some time to kind of figure out how they want to do things offensively. It seems like, and I'll repeat that again, it seems like, going back to 2 weeks ago, that they have settled on Bowman, at least for now. Doesn't mean we won't see a couple of guys, or maybe even all 3 tonight, but I think they're committed to seeing what Bowman can do, because he's the most experienced guy and he can spin it. So you have that. And then on the defensive side, I think they've had a lot of growing pains with a new coordinator. I think they really like Brian Nardo and what he brings. but I do think that they have struggled. And here's the third and final thing, and maybe the most important part. In my time at K-State and doing a lot of these K-State, Oklahoma State games, OSU always has, it seems, either a stud running back or a stud receiver, or maybe both, and a playmaker or two on defense. I don't know if they have anybody like that right now that you look at it and are immediately like, oh boy, that's going to be a real challenge. I'm not saying they don't have good players, but I don't know that they have anybody like some of the people they've had, at least in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years.
So Wyatt, then we can, sort of finish with this. Knowing that, and I think that's a general consensus, there's no chance still, right, with the extra time to prepare, with the fact that Kleiman has never won in Stillwater yet. Like, there's no chance that this is a game where Oklahoma State's overlooked, is there, with the Wildcats as heavy favorites and everything going in?
No chance. And here's why. I mean, if you paid attention to, and I'm not saying you did or didn't, I'm just talking about people in general. If you heard Chris Kleiman's comments to start this week, when he was asked about the fact that he's 0-2 in Stillwater, he simply stated the reason why is both times we've been there, OSU won the game at the line of scrimmage. So there's no chance that they're going to take them lightly because of that. And I think K-State feels like they're the better team, but need to win the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And then secondarily, and I think this is a pretty big concern for Coach Kleiman, because of the extra time and the things that OSU has gone through this year, I think they feel like one of the real keys is OSU is going to show us a handful of things that we haven't seen. How do we react to that? And I think those are things to really, really watch when we get into tonight's game.
Maybe then K-State can show them some things with Avery Johnson that they haven't seen. I know that
I don't think
we
there's
love
any
Avery
doubt
Johnson.
that's
He's
absolutely
local,
right, buddy.
This is the time.
absolutely
This
right.
is the time for all the Maize Eagle fans and Avery Johnson supporters here in his hometown and home area may get to see him play.
Yeah.
Seems like a good spot. All right, Wyatt, what do you guys have coming up on the broadcast tonight?
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. We've got one of my favorite young players on this team is Uso Sayamalo, our new nose tackle, defensive tackle, whatever you want to call him. Young man from Hawaii who actually didn't start playing football until he was a senior in high school. He's a farm kid in Hawaii. He's going to be one of our featured players. Also had a chance to talk with Ben Sennett this week, and we'll feature that. So it should be a good lead into what I think will be an intriguing game, because it is, I've said this a million times, that place is a hard place to play. They're right on top of you. And K-State's going to have to play a good football game to win here tonight. I think they can, and I think they will, but they got to go do it.
Yep, I agree. Don't overlook the Cowboys as much as they've struggled. 2 weeks at home, all of those things make it dangerous. Pre-game coverage begins at 4:30. Wildcat fans, you're going to get it all tonight on the broadcast right here on KFH, home of K-State Athletics. Wyatt, have a great call. Safe travels, to and from, and we'll talk again next week.
You got it. I appreciate the visit. Thanks, partner.
There goes Wyatt Thompson. Always appreciate that visit. Man, love having that insight this year with K-State football. I don't even want to call it a flex spot, Tommy. It's Gundy with 2 weeks in Stillwater, which is a brutal place to play. I'd love to see K-State go in there and dominate, but I wouldn't count on it. Just get out of there.
They have the talent to be able to.
Absolutely.
They absolutely.
I mean, I'd love to see it.
Yeah,
I just don't want to overset expectations.
Right. It's gonna be fun regardless, because Stillwater on a Friday night in October, man, it's gonna be a fun place to play tonight.
It's a little chilly in the air. Man, I could go for some chili right now. But we're going to pick it one way or the other. So what do we think? We'll find out. It's one of our 10 games. We'll pick Paul Savage in to join us. Pick sure to miss. We'll get you caught up on the standings and rip through 5 college, 5 NFL games of interest this weekend. That's coming next on Sports Daily.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Hey, sports bettors, ready for some picks destined to fail? It's time to hear what the Sports Daily staff thinks of the weekend games.
Oh, man, one of those games will be, of course, Chiefs-Vikings. Excited to pick that one. By the way, can't get enough Chiefs coverage? Check out New Heights with Jason and Travis Kelce, free on the Odyssey app. Follow it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. We welcome in Paul Savage for some picks. Let's take a quick review here. Jad's given us the updates. Looks like I had the best week last week, which was 500. So that's not saying much. I just, I guess I didn't stink as much as the two of you fellas. Tommy, you were 3-7. Paul 4-6. I was 5-5. That puts Paul and I in a tie for first, one game over 500, and Tommy at 5 games under 500. You've got some work to do here.
What do you mean? Wait a second. What do you mean? Yeah. Well,
it's not been good.
That's what you're going to give us on that? Well, thanks
last
for that.
Last week was not a good week.
Yeah.
Not a good week last week.
Look, it's I just telling people here, like a disclaimer, we call these picks sure to fail. We have fun with that because when I pick these games, it's, of course, KU, K-State, Chiefs. We'll always pick those. But then it's like the most difficult games we can find to pick, right? That's how we go through these. So it's not like we're betting these games necessarily or anything like that. These are the most difficult that we can find, or I can find. So that's where we'll go. All right, Jad, hit the music, and we'll go a little out of order here because, well, we've got K-State playing tonight. So let's start with the Cats. You just heard from Wyatt Thompson. You'll hear the game here tonight. We've got it when I took lines this morning at 11.5. K-State favored by 11.5. I won last week, so I'll go first. Look, I'm going to take the Cats here. I think there are a lot of reasons they could cover that number. They could get a lead with the pass game and then lean on that run game. I just think this is a big opportunity for Kleiman to get this little monkey off his back. And if, as he said, this game has been won at the lines of scrimmage, K-State's much better at the lines of scrimmage. So I'm going to lay the 11.5. Paul, you comfortable with that number?
Well, I am fairly comfortable with that number. And like Tommy, me, and you, OSU stinks as well. We all stink, so that we can all be in that club. Oklahoma State is not good, guys. They're just not a good football team. There's something going on. I don't know what it is. I think it has to do with OU to a certain extent. I'm not sure, but there's something going on with this team that just doesn't make this the program that it's been. I'm going to go ahead and take K-State, and I'll be truthful. I don't think it could easily be more than 11.5 points that KSU wins by.
Tommy, it is Gundy with extra time to prepare. Are you comfortable with the 11.5?
No, I'm not. I think if it was any other team, maybe. I mean, 11.5 is a lot of points, and we just talked about Stillwater on a Friday night in October, all of that. I just don't have any level of trust in Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy. From what I've seen so far this season, they don't have good quarterback play. As Wyatt Thompson mentioned a few minutes ago, they don't have like a dynamic player on offense like they used to have every single year. So knowing all of that, Kansas State healthier coming off the bye, I'm going to make it a clean sweep and go with you guys and take the Wildcats and lay the points.
Pretty hard to pick Oklahoma State the way they've been playing. All right, let's go to Saturday now. LSU, Missouri. Missouri is getting 4 points at home to now all of a sudden the 2-loss Tigers. Paul, you can lead us off on this one. What do you think of this SEC showdown?
Well, I think I'm surprised that it's only 4 points. I mean, LSU is still a good football team. They're not what they have been. They're not what we thought they would be. Yet on the other hand, Missouri is an average football team, very average. I mean, so I'm gonna go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and lay the points and take LSU. I think that's the safe bet on this particular game.
Not a good team, Paul, but that's a team that beat K-State at home in that same building. So, Tommy, do you think they could do it again or at least keep it close enough with LSU here?
Well, my ears perked up a little bit when Paul said that Missouri's not a good football team. I don't like Missouri, but I think that they're a good football team. I think they're not great. I think they're good. They've got a big-time weapon in Luther Burden. Brady Cook has played pretty well at quarterback for Mizzou so far. And I know that LSU has Jaden Daniels, and he's been a solid QB for them for the most part this season. But, man, knowing that it's in Missouri, I think the Tigers, as much as I hate to say it, I think they've got an opportunity to keep this game close. I'll take Missouri and I'll take the points.
I will too. Look,
Missouri
still haven't lost a game yet, right? And LSU's lost 2. And early in the season, it's hard to understand what that means. But the fact of the matter is, one of those 5 wins for Missouri is against K-State. So they have a quality win to go with the other 4. So I'll take the points at home. I got no problem with that. So give me Missouri and the points as well. Red River Shootout, fellas. Texas, the line is moving toward Oklahoma this week. So right now, this morning, when I took it, 5 points. Texas favored by 5. Tommy, you get to go first here.
I think it's a fairly easy bet, actually. Like within that touchdown number, I'm going to take
Those
the
are
Longhorns.
famous last words.
I'm going to take the Longhorns here because nothing against Oklahoma. I think that they're a solid football program, but they really haven't played anybody so far this season. I'm not sure they're quite at the level of Texas, and the Longhorns have been relatively impressive, at least in the last couple of weeks they have been. So I think that Texas is a step above OU. So knowing that, I'll take the Longhorns. I'll lay the points.
I agree. It's neutral field. It is basically when that happens, and especially in this game, it's 50-50. So you can just say who's the better team. And I do think Texas is the better team. I think Texas offensively has been fantastic. Venables is a defensive mastermind. Can he get something going against Quinn Ewers? Sure he can. Oklahoma's good. But I'm going to take Texas here if it's within a touchdown. I think they can win this game by a touchdown. I'll lay the points as well. Paul, a chance for another island.
Something, this island looks very inviting. I think I'm going to take it. And the reason I'm going to take it is that this is one of those games that you can kind of throw out a lot of things. This is the Red River rival. This is OU and Texas. And I'll tell you what, this is going to be an interesting game. And it's not like OU doesn't have talent. They got a lot of meat on the hoof, if you know what I mean. I'm going to go ahead and take OU and jump on that island. It may not be a good pick, but I'll tell you what, I'll take my chances for the island because I'm kind of one of those sailor kind of guys. All right, I'm going to take OU.
All right, here we go. Last one 2 more in college.
That's
we'll get
right.
to KU in just a second, but we'll start with Kentucky and Georgia. The Bulldogs. Boy, the Bulldogs are laying 14.5. I'll start us here. I'm going to take Kentucky. It's at Georgia. We've seen them struggle at times enough this year for me to think that Kentucky could keep it within a couple of touchdowns. I don't think Kentucky's going to win this game, but I definitely think they can keep it within a couple of touchdowns. I'm going to take the 14.5 points from a Kentucky team that looks pretty good, but it's really more about what we've seen from Georgia, which is they're not playing their best yet. I think they probably will be, but we're still early in the year, and I'll take the points. Paul?
Well, watching Kentucky last week, I thought, there's a lot of talent on that football team. That's not your average Kentucky football
Always
team
is.
over the last 50 years. But Georgia's still pretty good. And they're not the Georgia that we have watched in the past. But dang, fellas, they're still pretty darn good. So this is a tough one for me. Since this game is at Georgia, and since Jacob has already taken Kentucky, I'm going to go ahead and take Kentucky and give 14.5. I can't believe I'm doing this. It makes I can't wrap my hands around this thing, but I'm still going to go ahead and do it. I don't know. It's still Georgia, and they're still pretty good. They're just not as good as they've been. I'll take Georgia.
Okay, you're taking Georgia and you're laying the points, the 14.5.
I am.
Okay. I'm with Jacob here. I think Kentucky with the 14.5. They were impressive against Florida a week ago. And I mentioned it the other day. Mark Stoops, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated coaches in America.
Could be.
I know that Georgia's the number 1 team in the country. I know that they are the 2-time defending champions. They have
lost
not
a game in forever.
They've not looked as dominant, though, to start this season as they have in the last couple of years. I do think Georgia ultimately wins the game, but considering it's right outside of that 2-touchdown number at 14.5, I think the smart bet is to take Kentucky, and I'll take the points.
It is one of those, like if it was 13.5, I may take Georgia.
Yeah.
This is a chance for Georgia to say, hey, look at us again. So Georgia's got a big opportunity at home here. There's no doubt about it. All right, last one. This one's hard. UCF at KU. KU is getting points now, +2. You had the Brett McMurphy report yesterday that Jason Bean will start. It wasn't definitive that Jalen Daniels will not play, just that he will not start. I cannot imagine that if he does not start, he will play. I think we're going to get all Jason Bean here. Can KU with Jason Bean basically beat UCF? It becomes the question here. This is hard. He's had the week to prepare. I'll take KU and just bank on Leipold being as good a coach as we know he is. And now with the opportunity to prepare Jason Bean for this opportunity, the only thing that gives me pause is UCF has a good offense, and that may keep KU from being able to run the ball like I know they'll want to, but their defense has been better. I'm going to take the points here. I'm going to take the home points. This, to me, is one of the more difficult games to pick on our entire slate, but I'll take the points with KU. Tommy?
So here's the thing. I don't think the question is, can Jason Bean beat UCF? Because I think that could have been the question when it was a backup quarterback for KU and a backup quarterback for UCF. It doesn't look like that's the case. It looks like John Reese Plumlee, the starting QB for UCF, will return tomorrow. At least that's what I've been seeing so far. So now you've got a backup quarterback for KU and Jason Bean taking on the returning starter for UCF, who's been out for a couple of weeks and now more than likely will be back. And I think that's a big reason why the line has moved over the last couple of days. Man, my heart wants to say KU. My head tells me UCF. I'm going to take UCF and I'll lay the points.
UCF has a big play offense. The one thing KU can do is play well in the secondary, Paul. Can they lean on that defense enough, or are they not going to be able to keep up with a high-powered UCF offense?
Well, I thought I would never say this. I would never have chosen to watch the University of Central Florida on my own. However, last weekend they played Baylor, and I watched basically the whole game. So I feel that I'm familiar with the talent. Am I familiar with this team as a whole? No, I'm not really that familiar with them. But let me tell you, fellas, they got some athletes. They got some good athletes.
Got some good receivers.
Yes, they do. They're DBs. This is one of those teams that it almost reminds you of the SEC in the way that they run. This team runs really well. They've got wonderful overall team speed. And with that being said, boy, it is really, really hard to pick against UCF. But Tommy, I think I'm going to let you have that island. Jacob, okay. I'm going to go with you and KU, and it's almost more of a gut than it is anything else, because it would not surprise me to see the University of Central Florida beat KU by 2.5 touchdowns. I wouldn't be surprised. So, but I'm still going to go ahead and take KU.
Yeah, it's a Leipold pick for me. That's pretty much what it comes down to. All right, let's go to the NFL. We've got Sunday morning football in London. Buffalo technically listed as the home team here, but you can throw that out the window. Buffalo's a 5.5-point favorite. Paul, you can start us off in the NFL here. Jacksonville, they got to stay over there. It's the trip for Buffalo. What do you think on this one?
Well, Jacksonville is not great. Buffalo, we're still thinking that this team has not peaked. It's got room for improvement. I guess I'm going to take Buffalo, even though I have to give 5.5. I just don't think Jacksonville can line up and play very long with the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to go ahead and take Buffalo.
All right, Tommy, what do you got?
I mean, Paul says that Buffalo hasn't peaked yet. I mean, they absolutely demolished Miami a week ago. I know that they've got to go to London, and I know that you would think the Jaguars will be fairly well rested considering they get to stay there, and it's the second game in a row that they're playing overseas, and Buffalo's the one that has to travel out. I don't know. I don't put a whole lot of stock into that unless the team is significantly jet lagged, and I just don't think that's probably the case. It sounds like Von Miller will be returning to the Bills and playing this weekend. I think it's another opportunity for Buffalo to flex. I'm going to take Buffalo, and I'll lay the points.
It is, but the travel. It's an opportunity for the Jags to show something.
I don't put too much stock into that.
I'm going to take the 5.5 points. I don't know if I think Jacksonville will win, but I think they can keep it close. 5.5 points is quite a bit here for me. So I'm going to take the 5.5 points, and I'll take that island. Ravens, Steelers, Tommy. Steelers getting 4 points at home here against Baltimore in this nasty, nasty rivalry. I put this one on here because I really don't. I don't know. I don't have a strong take on it. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I actually think it's a fairly easy pick. Kenny Pickett is banged up. It looks like he will play, but he might be a little bit limited, might be a little bit hobbled. And the Steelers offensively a week ago against the Texans were god awful. The worst that I've seen from the Steelers maybe ever. And so that being said, I mean, I know that it's in Pittsburgh. I know that it's a divisional game. I know the rivalry, all of that. Man, give me the Ravens. I'm going to lay the points. Paul?
Yeah, this is the easiest professional game, I think, on the list to pick. The Steelers were not good last week. They haven't shown the ability to be the team. And listen, if I'm not mistaken, the first or second week out, we were talking about how the Steelers might be a really good football team. As a matter of fact, I think I picked them a couple of times on our Friday picks, but they disappointed me each time. I don't see any way in the world that the Steelers beat the Ravens, and they even with 4 points, that's not near enough. I'm with Tommy. I'm taking the Ravens.
Oh man, Lamar Jackson just struggles against Pittsburgh. It's in Pittsburgh. He's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns against this defense. Man, Pickett's hurt. I don't know what to make of that. I'm going to take Pittsburgh. I'm going to take the home points here.
Right.
4 points in a game that's almost always close. That's kind of it again. I'm going to just take the points in a wacky, hard-nosed, hard-fought series. Jackson has struggled. Jackson had also struggled against the Browns, and they trounced them. So this will probably be the last time I look historically on this, but I'm going to take Pittsburgh and take these points. Eagles, Rams. Rams getting 4 points at home against Philadelphia. I will probably surprise you guys with this one. I'm going to take the Rams and take the points. I don't know if we are definitive on Cooper Kupp's potential return here, but Matt Stafford will play. The Eagles continue to play close games. They just played Washington in overtime at home, so now they've got to go across the country to the Rams. Matt Stafford, their secondary has had flaws, and the Rams can attack that way. I'm gonna take LA here. I'm taking the Rams and taking those points at home. Tommy?
I got 2 words for you, Cooper Kupp. And it sounds like he is expected to play on Sunday. You combine him with Puka Nacua, who has been just a breath of fresh air offensively to start this season. I mean, he's been one of the best wide receivers in the NFL to kick off this season. And then you add back in Cooper Kupp, and then you know that, I mean, yeah, the Eagles have won games, but they haven't been dominant really in any of them. There have been a couple of really close calls for Philadelphia. The fact that this is in LA, I'm kind of with you, Jacob. I'm going to take the Rams, and I'm going to take those points.
Paul, a chance for an island with the Eagles. I don't get that opportunity very often.
Well, here's the thing. I'm kind of switching gears. I was leaning towards the Rams just like you guys.
Really?
Just a little bit. I was leaning towards the Rams. But the fact that this is an island, and you guys are giving me an island with the Philadelphia Eagles? Are you kidding me? What is this, Christmas? No, it's not. We're in October still. I'm taking the Eagles. Thank you, fellas. I appreciate it.
You got it. You got that island. Take those stinking Eagles all you want. All right. We'll go Chiefs here because the next one's, they play first. Chiefs, Vikings. Vikings getting 3.5 points at home. Man, this thing has just continued to go toward Minnesota. Paul, you buying it? You buying the Vikings and the sharp money there?
Not buying at all. I'm taking the Chiefs. This is an easy pick. This shouldn't even be a conversation. I'm taking the Chiefs.
No, Tommy. Yeah, I think we're gonna sweep this, but man, it's weird. It's so weird.
Are you going first or am I going?
I can go first. I'm gonna take the Chiefs too. Look, it's the defense can get pressure. I think the big thing for Kansas City is that if they can establish the run the way they have, that's their golden ticket. If they can run the ball the way that they have in the last couple of weeks, I think that's it. In a game that feels like it's going to be this offensive explosion, I think the Chiefs would like to slow it down and run the rock. And yeah, they're going to pressure Kirk Cousins, but guess what happens when you bring lots of people on Kirk Cousins? You might get Justin Jefferson one-on-one. That's scary. There's something fishy here. I'm going to take the Chiefs, though. That line has moved way down. What do you think?
I guess I'll take the island. And here's the reason why. I think the Chiefs are going to win. Don't get me wrong. I think they will win the game. the Chiefs wouldn't have covered this number against the Jets a week ago, right?
Yeah.
And I think the Vikings are better than the Jets are. So, I mean, it is fishy. I think the Chiefs win.
It's back-to-back road
okay.
games.
All right, here I'll take the Vikings. I'll take that 3.5 just because I would like the island.
Okay. There you have it. Let's go to the final one. Best game of the week, biggest game of the week, high profile, all that stuff. Niners getting 4 points at home against the Cowboys. I'll start us off here. Look, I hate the 49ers. Hate them. That rivalry goes back so far as a Cowboys fan to the Niners. Like, of my childhood, that's still to me like the best rivalry that's ever existed. Cowboys-Niners of the mid-90s. I do not like this game for Dallas right now. I'm going to take the 49ers here and lay the 4. I don't like the matchup at all. I just don't for Dallas in this one. So I think that San Francisco is going to be able to get Dak under pressure here, maybe make some mistakes. I just don't think Dallas is running the ball the way they need to run the ball to win this game. So I'm taking the Niners, and I'll lay the 4. Paul?
Well, this is one of those games where, you look at the defense for the Cowboys, you look at the offense for the 49ers, and you think who has the advantage? Well, both are pretty good. You got McCaffrey and Purdy's really starting to come along and developing into a good NFL quarterback. But which is better? Cowboys defense, 49ers offense? I'll tell you what, this one is a struggle for me. But I think I'm just going to go ahead with the Cowboys. Whenever in doubt, go with defense, fellas. That's kind of my philosophy on this. I'm taking the Cowboys.
Okay. Tommy?
So I know that we're picking it at the line at 4. I just looked; it's updated to 3.5. I know we're picking it at 4. I'm just saying the updated line right now is at 3.5. That could be a pretty big half point based on what we're picking versus what the line is right this second. I'm going to go with Paul. I'm going to take the Cowboys, and I'll take the 4. If it was 3.5, if we were picking it, it might be a little bit different. I might take the Niners at that point, but I'm going to take the Cowboys at +4. And I love the fact that Jacob is on an island by himself with the 49ers against the Cowboys. I love that so much, but that's the way we're going to take it.
I hope I lose.
Wow.
I hope I lose it very badly and get smashed and the Cowboys win by 50. But, I just don't like the matchup for Dallas. Okay, that's it for picks. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back, and we'll talk a little high school football with Matt Henderson at Catch Kansas. Another week coming up, another Friday night. Here we go, next on Sports Daily. Welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Let's talk a little high school football with Matt Henderson at catchakansas.com. We have week 6, which means we have 3 games to go on the high school football week. Hendo, how are you?
Doing great, guys. How are you?
Doing good. We got some big ones here this week. Let's start in 3A this time. Andale just keeps doing what Andale does, and they get what might be our area's next best 3A team, certainly in the mix. Collegiate goes there and is going to take a shot at the champs who haven't lost in forever. It's a road game. We'll ask that question again. Can Collegiate get it done? Is it, what needs to happen for them to have a shot here?
A perfect game. I don't know how else you can really put it. We're looking at this Andale team, and I did some research based on the numbers they put up after they scored 85 on Nickerson last week. They have scored more than 74 points a game this year. The state record since they expanded to teams playing 13-game seasons is 64. So right now, 5 games, small sample size, still plenty of football to go. And you're looking at teams that Andale is on pace right now. They could absolutely shatter that mark. Collegiate, one of the best defenses, probably maybe the best defense they're going to face this year. We'll see what happens along the rest of the year. Cheney next week, very good team as well. So a tough back-to-back, but this Collegiate team's only given up just over a touchdown a game scoring. It's a matter of can they actually slow down that Andale offense. So we really haven't even seen have to do a whole lot because they're just beating teams based on forcing turnovers and just creating big plays. So they're not even having to run their full offense. Their starters not playing in the second half most games. So we'll see what Andale, this is really the first Andale test of this new look team. I don't doubt that team is going to get it done. They haven't lost a home game since 2012. Collegiate, the last team to beat them when they did that. So it'll be fun. I think this is all Andale though. But the Collegiate playmakers, they have a chance to really go out there and make a statement.
When you look at the schedule, it just so happens this is the week where Capon and Carroll play. Capon's ranked number 2, I believe, in 5A. Carroll is struggling this year as a overall football team. But is this one of those games that truly, Hendo, you can kind of say, well, throw out their records, throw everything out. This is a different week. This is a game that these guys want to win. All these kids will be hyped up, ready to go. Give me a quick breakdown on Carroll and Capon. Does Carroll have a chance?
I will never count Carroll out in this game. They've played every year. Obviously, they play every year. Sometimes they play twice a year. And Carroll's won every single matchup going back to 2000. Last Capon win in the series, 1999. So, even if you look at the rosters this year, Carroll has been they're down this year. We've seen them lose in blowout games to a few teams already. They have some injuries they're dealing with as well. Capon, on the other hand, just the one loss to Northwest, but they kept that very competitive. And they're looking like maybe the team to beat in 5A West. So I would say you look at it on paper, you look at everything going in. This should be the year that Capon does get it done. But again, it's like you said, it's the holy war. The teams just get up for this game, and I feel like this mindset with Carroll, it could be you're looking at it okay, it's been a long year. It may not be a long postseason run for us, but this will be the one game we want to win this year more than anything. And so you really can't count them out because of that. And the atmosphere, Riverfront Stadium, again, they did that last year when they put over 8,000 fans in those seats. Expect another great one like that tonight.
It's going to become. That atmosphere last year was just unreal. All right, as we look around the rest of the slate here, it's not an over. That's the game in the City League, and then we may get some lopsided affairs or the non-contenders playing up. Not a great week of City League matchups. East has something cool happening though. Emporia coming in. What are we looking at with the Aces tonight?
So I don't think it'll be a competitive football game. Emporia is very bottom tier. They 0-4 this year, lost to another bad team in Topeka last week. But the cool thing that's happening with this game is they're doing a 100-year anniversary of the school, the oldest school in the city, Wichita East, the original Wichita High School. And they're actually getting to play a game at home. So the thing with Wichita East is they have a turf field, but they can't put lights because of the school's relation to Interstate 135. They cannot have those bright lights going that close to the highway. So East is at their home field. They'll host soccer matches. They'll host home track meets, stuff like that. but they cannot host football games at night. So they're doing this early, playing this game at 4:00. Able to get all the home fans, like the fans of the East, like maybe a big reunion is going to happen, a big celebration for the school, get to play an actual home game for them. Very cool moment for the whole school and for the City League to really kind of embrace what East has brought.
And if you don't mind, Jacob and Hendo, I'm going to elaborate a little bit. 2 or 3 days ago, brand new. It looks like, well, they look brand new to me. Stadium seats have been brought in. Now they're not huge stadium seats; they're portable ones. But they're 3-4 rows of seats, and a bunch of them for an extra 300 to 400 people. Along with the other bleachers. Also, fellas, the school is now saying bring a lawn chair. You're going to have to bring a lawn chair or a blanket or something to sit on. So if you're thinking about going to that game and you're listening to this broadcast right now, bring something to sit with and be comfortable. This game will start at 4:00 and of course be over by the time it gets dark. That's what the hope is. And, Jacob, one of the interesting things, and I guess I should have known this. I've lived in Wichita nearly my entire life other than going to college. But I mean, 100 years old is East High School, and they've never played a varsity football game on their campus. So that's part of the thing. And you think about it, you think, well, at some point, didn't East have a stadium? Well, the answer would be no. They've always played their games off of the campus. So 100 years, we're going to get our first on-campus varsity football game, which is kind of cool. But like I say, if you're listening to this broadcast and you're going to the game tonight, bring a lawn chair, bring a blanket. You may want, it's going to be a little nippy out there. Just treat it like there won't be a seat for you. There may not be a bleacher for you. Just come prepared and you'll have a great time. It's going to be a great atmosphere, for guys' sakes, playing in that little old stadium right there off with the East building right there in view for most people to see. It's really going to be kind of cool, fellas, and it's going to be a fun time.
It is going to be fun.
Absolutely.
It is going to be an atmosphere there that we're really paying attention to tonight. All right, Hendo, give us one or two more key matchups to keep an eye on tonight in Week 6.
One big one we definitely need to watch will be Goddard and Maize South. Both teams sitting at 4-1. Goddard, they've played each the last, I believe, 8 years, but Goddard won in the series for the first time ever last year. And this team will be like we're looking at two teams taking both 4-1. A lot of Class 5A playoff positioning, as both are currently chasing Eisenhower, who's undefeated and should improve to 6-0 tonight. Liberal also still 5-0 out in Western Kansas. But these two teams are going to be right there nipping at their heels. Goddard, this team, 3 different guys have more than 400 yards rushing. They employ that single wing that we've seen work at a lot of smaller schools. They're taking it to Class 5A and having great success with it so far. Maize South, we saw Tate McNew, Sammy Dressy in the early goings as they were dealing with some injuries themselves. Braxton Bigley, their running back, just returned last week in their shutout win over Maize. And so that really creates a really good balance for that Maverick offense. So we'll see if Goddard's able to slow them down. Their defense has been stellar this year as well. That's one that we're really watching. That'll be fun. And then I know also last year, all eyes were on Maize versus Derby. This year, maybe a little less so. Maize is down, losing Avery Johnson, plus that massive senior class they had. Derby should come out victorious in this one, the way they're playing. But Derby going without their starting quarterback, both teams may have backups going because we saw Drew Kemp for Maize was unable to sit up last week.
They had to go with the true freshman there, so that will be interesting. All right, Hendo, we've got a big slate tonight. You can find all the coverage, of course, at catchitkansas.com. There is a free Catch It Kansas app for you that you can keep up with scores around the area. If you are at one of these games, you can, of course, watch the highlights of these games beginning at 9 o'clock on 12 News, more at 10 o'clock on 12 News, and the most at 10:35 on the KSCW as we go into the Catch It Kansas show tonight. Good shooting tonight, Hendo. We'll have another good high school football Friday night.
Thanks, guys.
All right, there goes Matt Henderson. On the way out here, let's give away some HTO. We'll give away 2 free iced tea cards here. More than 25 flavors, including 2 new fall options, apple pie and peach cobbler. You got to try them. Got to check them out. 2 free iced tea cards available. You can use them at Wichita East, Wichita West, now in Derby as well. These cards are good for any of those 3 locations. We'll be right back with more Sports Daily right after this. All right. Welcome back in Sports Daily, everybody. Glad to have you with us on the air here. It's a packed house on the second hour of Friday. You've got me, Jacob Albracht. You got Tommy Castor. You got Paul Savage, Jad in there producing for us. Fellas, it is a wild week of football, starting with Friday night football, high school, and K-State. We sort of dug into the Chiefs and the Vikings. Let's spend just a second here outside of our picks on KU tomorrow. I mean, I don't think we're going to be in a situation where Jalen Daniels plays in this game. If he doesn't start, I don't think we'll see him play. The hardest part about this, Tommy, has been from the beginning, is this long-term? Is this short-term? Is there any chance he's over this at any point this season?
I don't think he's going to be over it this season, but I do think that KU is going to work him conservatively back. I've said it all along. I'm not sure that we're going to see him until after the Jayhawks bye week, which is the week of, I think, the 21st. I'm not sure that we would, even conceivably see him back until the OU game, the end of the month. And that's even, I think, optimistic. So I don't know. I don't think we're going to see him tomorrow, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's out for a period of time.
Well, I'm very curious as to your thoughts on Bean. I mean, I said just on Wednesday that I kind of like the kid. I see some upside potential in this kid. Your guys' opinion on if it need be, Bean taking over this team and being its go-to quarterback. Your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, it certainly limits them. I mean, I think everyone is appreciative of Bean coming back. I said this, I think, last week or earlier this week. It was curious to me that he did come back, and that tells me that there's been concern about Jalen Daniels back. You're talking about the preseason Big 12 Player of the Year here. And early in the year when he didn't play, and Leipold said it's unfortunately something he's been dealing with for a long time. That has always given me pause. And then it's like, well, Jason Bean came back. There's probably a reason for that. I mean, Jalen Daniels is technically a junior, Tommy. I suppose he could come back next year. I don't know that any of us were thinking that way, right? Because he was Big 12 preseason player of the year and all these things. But the bottom line, the bottom line is he's not healthy. He's not right. And he hasn't been at all this year. He hasn't looked like it. And now he's not playing.
I do think that there is a pretty solid chance that we'll see him back next year for the Jayhawks. I mean, considering that the last 2 seasons he's dealt with injuries and we really haven't seen, the full capabilities of what he can do. And it wouldn't surprise me at all
for a minute last year.
He was a
Heisman candidate.
Not throughout the entire season, the body of work of what he can do from start to finish.
I mean, Paul, we're talking about a Heisman candidate when he's healthy. And, and the strange thing is, look, the back is different than the shoulder. This isn't the same thing that kept him out of games last year. It's something that we think he played through to some degree last year, too. Right. At what point, can KU just say, you know what? We're just going to shut it down for a little while and see if we can't get that back right. Is it that? But again, I keep going back to the same place. Is it possible to get it right? What is going on that it can't get right? And that concerns me because then you're talking about back issues take serious remedies sometimes to fix, I guess is what I would say. Right. And that becomes to me the big concern. And I hope he does come back because America loves Jalen Daniels and would really love him over a full season. So I don't know. That's lingering there. And then it becomes, can Jason Bean win? I mean, you guys,
I like the kid. I think about it in the picks. Yeah. Well, and then here's the thing,
he's got a week to prepare. Paul, real quick as a coach, and we've got probably about 10 seconds to answer this question. A week of preparation versus no preparation could be all the difference in the world for Jason.
That helps.
And we'll see. I mean, this is a big test for him because that offense, I think, will test them and make them score some points tomorrow. We'll come back. We'll tell you what's on tap. It's a lot on Sports Daily. All right, everybody. So we've got a busy weekend coming for you. Jim Rome, 11 o'clock. Bob and Jeff from 2 to 4. K-State football at Oklahoma State, 4:30. Coverage begins tonight. Tomorrow, hey, you've got me from 11 to 4 on CBS Sports Radio. Tune in, coast to coast, call in. Let's get some Kansas representation out to the rest of the country. Sunday, 8 a.m. pregame coverage of that Jacksonville-Buffalo game. That starts at 8:30. Then you've got Chiefs pregame coverage on the Chiefs Radio Network over on KNSS beginning at 2 o'clock. And Sunday night football, 6:30, Cowboys, 49ers. Fellas, looking forward to kicking your tails and picks again. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the football. Paul, good luck tonight in the high school world.
Thanks, fellas.
We'll talk to everybody next week. For Jad Chambers, Tommy Castor.
Sports, lighter news, and great comedy with Bob and Tom mornings, 97.5 and 12.